there is no practical way to force Vladimir Putin out of the areas that he's taken, short of the U.S. military rolling in and having a direct confrontation with Russia. And I just don't think that any of us are willing to do that so that the Donbass region is ruled by Kiev rather than Moscow. That's just...
Piers Morgan brought on a few people, including Cenk Uygur, Dave Smith, and a couple of other people onto this panel here. And Dave Smith just put everybody in their place here live on Piers Morgan, including Cenk Uygur and many other people who are on this panel. Whenever they're talking about the foreign wars that the United States are involved in, I fully agree with everything that comes out of Dave Smith's mouth right here. But I have a feeling that a lot of you are not going to completely agree, including Piers Morgan didn't completely agree. Anyway, let's get into this clip here where Dave Smith shuts down this entire Piers Morgan panel on live TV, shocking Piers Morgan and others on this panel.
My guess is that the Arab nations will say, right, we will let America rebuild Gaza. The Palestinian people will not be all forced out. The ones who want to stay will be able to stay. But it has to be as part of a two-state solution pathway that is specifically laid out and has a timeline. I suspect that may be how this ends up. Anyway, we'll see. I want to just change to another war briefly. And let me start with you, Dean, on this one. This is Ukraine. Donald Trump has revealed he's had a very productive call with Vladimir Putin. He said, we talked about the strength of our respective nations and the great benefit we'll someday work together. But first, we want to stop the millions of deaths taking place in the war with Russia and Ukraine. President Putin even used my strong campaign motto of common sense. We both believe in it strongly, adding they've agreed to start negotiations immediately and that he will notify Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky of the conversation. And that apparently is going to happen imminently. So there's movement there. I interviewed President Zelensky last week, and it was clear that he also is prepared to sit around a negotiating table and try and resolve this. But what is your reaction to Donald Trump and his announcement about talking to Putin?
He should talk to both sides. I'm all for that, 100%. But I say that with President Trump's leadership, that war in Ukraine will be over for the end of this calendar year. And I think that's what everybody wants, since what President Trump has said himself. It's like, I want to stop the killing. I want to stop people from dying. And that war, I believe, wholeheartedly will be done by the end of this year. Whatever the concessions are, I don't know, but it's going to be done, and people will stop dying, and that'll be a conflict that we've needed to end. There's so many people who have been killed there, and I'll be celebrating when it is over, and it will be over by the end of this year.
Dave Smith, my concern with this is that the only way I can conceivably see this getting resolved anytime soon is that Vladimir Putin gets to keep what he's taken, as he did with Crimea. I just don't see that the Ukrainians have enough strength or enough resolve from people like the United States now to continue the battle. And so we're left with where we are on geographic lines, which means Putin really, he wins, doesn't he? He takes what he's taken again.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Look, I certainly get your point, and I think that we are there are constraints to reality. And look, I mean, even like me and Cenk, as we've been talking about this situation in Israel, I mean, both of us would probably agree that it certainly wasn't legitimate the way the state of Israel was formed to begin with, and there was a whole lot of ethnic cleansing that went on then. But neither of us are arguing. We're saying the Palestinians should have their land in Gaza and the West Bank. Neither of us are saying, like, you got to, you know what I mean? Like, because at a certain point in time, you just have to deal with the reality of the situation. Right. People living that is what, there is no practical way to force Vladimir Putin out of the areas that he's taken, short of the U.S. military rolling in and having a direct confrontation with Russia. And I just don't think that any of us are willing to do that so that the Donbass region is ruled by Kiev rather than Moscow. That's just not.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100% with Dave Smith, and I'm curious to see what you guys think in the comments. I'm 100% in agreement here. I don't care if Russia rules Ukraine or not. I don't care. And I know everybody's always talking about, it's a slippery slope. If we let Putin have Ukraine, he might just keep going further and further. And it's like, maybe, but we don't know that for sure. Maybe he will just be content with Ukraine. We don't know what's going on in his head. We don't know what the oligarchs are pushing him to do and not do. right? But we do know for a fact that if we do step in and have, the full force of the United States military go to war with Russia, which is what it's going to take to stop him, then we do know that he's going to fight back. And it's probably not going to end well for anyone, for anyone on earth. It's probably going to end in nuclear war, which is not going to go well for anyone. So we might as well take the risk and take the chance that could yield us a good result, which being Russia taking over Ukraine, and then he stops and we're just chilling and we can worry about other stuff. I agree with Dave Smith here 100%. I'm curious to see what you guys say in the comments.
I'm sorry, that's not worth the cost of a total war between America and Russia. I hope Dean is right. I think this is an incredible improvement from the previous administration and their rhetoric and their strategy there. And I give a lot of credit to Pete Hegseth, who also, just recently said some great things on this issue, that NATO won't be involved. Look, I know that me and you don't agree on this, Piers, but I'm with Scott Horton and John Mearsheimer on this. I think that U.S. Foreign policy, and particularly NATO enlargement, color-coded revolutions, I think we did a lot to provoke this conflict. And I think that much like Israel in the Middle East, look, America's got all the chips here, really, when it comes down to it. We can get Vladimir Putin to do much of what we would like him to do. I would like to see Trump follow through on one of his previous ideas I think the only chance of actually getting all that Ukrainian territory, short of Crimea, you're not getting Crimea, but the rest of the territory, I think you could work out a deal where the U.S. pulls out of NATO. Donald Trump said it before. Why on earth are we subsidizing the defense of rich European countries? Because we worked out this agreement when they were in ashes after World War II to prevent against the Soviet Union. Well, they're not in ashes anymore. The Soviet Union doesn't exist anymore. And there's no reason why America needs to subsidize the defense of other rich countries. So, look, I think this is a huge improvement. There probably is room for improvement even from there. And I don't know, I'm not quite as confident as Dean, but I really do hope that this war comes to an end and the killing.
Yeah, I mean, look, the reason we disagree is I wouldn't trust Putin as far as I could throw him, and I think he deeply regrets that the Soviet Union ever got broken up, and he would love to get it all restored. He sees himself as a modern day czar, is my opinion.
But Piers, he couldn't even take Kiev. So what do you think? He's rolling on Poland.
Sure, but he'll end up with
saying I trust him.
Okay, but he'll end up with a third of Ukraine.
That's true though. I mean, we're giving money and weapons and things like that to Ukraine for sure, but it's not like we're sending crazy, like we're not putting, like I said earlier, the full force of the United States military in Ukraine to help them out. And they did struggle, whenever Russia first invaded Ukraine. I know a lot of that was propaganda to try and, dissuade the Russian troops from being excited to wake up every day and go fight this war. But a lot of the stuff was propaganda, such as, I forgot what they called the pilot, but they said that there was like one Ukrainian pilot that was taken down. It was the Ghost of Kiev. Yeah, that guy. And that was all fake and everything. But then Russia did struggle whenever they initially invaded Ukraine, especially struggled in comparison to what they thought was going to happen, I'm sure. And then what I thought and the rest of the world thought was going to happen when they invaded Ukraine. I thought they were just going to run right through it. They're still fighting the war over there. They're still trying to take it, So Dave Smith is correct there too. Like, yeah, he might try to go invade Poland next. He might try to keep going after, but he could barely take Ukraine. They're still fighting over there. So it's like, just let him have it, just let him have it. Who cares about Ukraine? Genuinely, who cares?
Go with Crimea, right? And I just wouldn't trust him. I think that he will try and come again for more of Ukraine. And we'll see. History will prove one of us right about this. I just don't trust him and think he is a ruthless Russian dictator. And I think he's used the excuse of NATO encroachment when, in fact, the reason NATO had to be encroached was precisely because of what he's done in Ukraine. So it depends who you really want to believe most here. Batsy, let me bring you in. I mean, it seems to me, whatever people think of this, Donald Trump, once again, as he's shown since he became president again, he steamed in here utterly determined to get this resolved very quickly. And he is indisputably a man of peace. He does not believe in war. He thinks war is bad business. It's bad for dead bodies and bad for money that gets wasted. I mean, that's an unusual thing with an American president. Sitting here in London right now, I'm like, this is good to have an American president who doesn't like war. Hallelujah.
Exactly. And first of all, utterly delicious for once to be on the same side as Dave of an argument. I think the United States should immediately withdraw from NATO. I just want to push back on one thing you said, Piers.
Sorry, on that. Wait a minute. That would be a catastrophe. And I'll tell you why. Russia has 6,000
If you enjoy content like this, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video.
nuclear weapons. America has a few less. America with Europe has a little bit more than Russia. That's why NATO has to stay intact. You have to have a strong. But where Trump was right. But where Trump was right is that all the member countries have to pay their way. It was completely scandalous. They weren't even paying their minimum dues. And guess what? Most of them now are, right? And the ones who aren't will soon be bounced out if they're not careful. So
first of
Trump
all,
was right. I don't think he wants to dismantle NATO because he understands that NATO collectively actually is more powerful than Russia. If you dismantle it, neither America nor Europe as an entity or America would have the same firepower nuclear as Russia. That's why it has to stay together.
So first of all, that acknowledgement was bought in blood, right? Donald Trump was mercilessly booed and mocked for suggesting that for 10 years, but by many, many, many people. So first of all, acknowledging that acknowledgement was hard won,
and
I'm glad to have
and he's
it.
right now.
Second of all, what I would say is, you know, when the war in Ukraine started, the Donbas region was not part of Ukraine. It was an independent republic of Donetsk and Luhansk. There was a civil war undergoing at that exact time. And in fact, the residents of Donetsk and the residents of Luhansk were blaming Putin for abandoning them and not invading and coming to protect them from the neo-Nazi, as they called it, Ukrainian regime.
But that's not true.
So
only 10%. Hang on, that's not true.
Yeah, this is facts, though. The United States, and we've learned this, and it's actually crazy to me how much I've found out over the last few years, like doing videos like these and just being plugged into this space, and how much propaganda is fed to us in school and after school on social media and stuff. I don't know who this lady is, and I don't trust her because of that necklace. That's a joke. I'm just joking. Please don't come after me. But I don't know who this is, but it's facts. That what she said with the, you know, when Russia invaded Ukraine, the Donbass region wasn't even part of Ukraine, you know, so it's part of the propaganda campaign. It's part of the brainwashing that they do to make Putin seem like the super evil dictator, which I'm not saying is a good guy at all, but I am just saying that the United States, it's in their best interest and in the school system's best interest to make him look like the most evil person that he could possibly look like. And that's what they do. That's what they do to you throughout school, on social media, with the mainstream media. I don't even have to tell you that. I mean, that's obvious. Everybody knows that now. But they still are semi-successful at doing it. And that's one of those things that they did that made people just further think that Putin is a super evil dictator. And that's why they didn't want Tucker Carlson to go over and interview Vladimir Putin, you know? But shout out to people like Dave Smith, man, for setting the record straight on all of these issues. I really agree with a lot of things that he says. Not everything, but I think Dave Smith, he's the real deal. I like him a lot, and he's not afraid to tell it how it is, no matter what the consequences are going to be of that. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about Dave Smith shutting down all these woke idiots on this panel here. Even Piers Morgan was pretty shocked and really didn't like what Dave Smith was saying too much. Let me know in the comments. Do you guys agree with Dave Smith, or do you agree with Piers Morgan and some of these other panelists?